Hello fellow makeup lovers, how are you guys doing today? Welcome back to another day of Indie Miss, or actually the very last day of Indie Miss, because we made it through this month. I don't know how I did, but I did. Posting every single day and moving. I don't know, but I'm here and I can't wait to sleep again. So I hope you enjoyed this month, and I thought it'd be right to just finish off with a bang, a video talking about my favorite things, which is indie eyeshadow palettes and etc. So today we're talking all about the best indie eye products of 2020. Some products I tried this year, some are favorites that have stood the test of time. I already have a video up on all of the best indie face products and best indie lip products of this year, so I will link both of those down below. Now let's just go ahead and jump on in. I do have so many eyeshadow palettes to mention, so I thought I would start off with the products that are not eyeshadow palettes. First, we have the Crow and Pebble eyeshadow primer. I have the shade Parchment right here, which is my go-to shade. I really love this eyeshadow primer. I've raved about it quite a lot, and it's just been my holy grail eyeshadow primer that I've been using pretty much every day. I don't know if you can see the giant dip in that. So this is just the perfect shade for me. I feel like eyeshadows blend perfectly on top of it. It has really good staying power. It's just a really great all-around go-to eyeshadow primer. The only time I wouldn't want to use this as much is if I'm using a formula that's a little bit more tricky, when I'm using sometimes pastels if they're thinner, or just any thin matte formula in general. This is not a super sticky thick base, but it's worked perfectly for almost every eyeshadow look that I've done, and I just really enjoy it. Crow and Pebble is I believe they're an indie brand in Scotland, if I remember correctly, and they have an amazing shade range for their eye primers. I'll leave it on screen. As small of an indie brand as they are, they took the time to make eyeshadow primers in a variety of shades better than big brands out here that are making millions every year. So that's just another reason why I love them. I also have a white shade, but I don't use that anywhere near as much as the shade Parchment. So that is definitely a favorite for this year. And then I have a brow product to mention really quickly. I know brows are kind of boring, but I just wanted to throw it in real quick. This is the We Makeup Their Brow Gel, and I have the shade 01. This is the perfect shade for me. I really love this because it lasts so well. It does take a little bit longer to apply than powder, which is what I was doing before this. I started using this specifically, I was testing it out for a sponsored video because I knew I was going to be doing a full review of their products, and I ended up falling really in love with this one to the point where I switched my brow routine, and I have continued to use this nearly every single day. It is really liquidy, and I normally take my brow brush and just tip into a little tiny bit of product, but I love this because I feel like being careful with it, I can still get a natural brow look, and it literally lays my brows down so well. Like, I could sit here and mess with all of this and my brows are not getting messed up. And then I have another product from We Makeup here actually. This is their More Volume Mascara. I really love this. I purchased the first tube myself and I completely used it up, and they sent me a replacement. So I have continued to use this for months and months now. I think maybe I've been using this for like 6 months nonstop or something. But I really like this, for one, because it is such a deep black shade. It's really rich. It has a little bit of a smaller wand, if you can see here, which I really appreciate because I feel like with having smaller eyes, it's really easy to get right in there and not make a huge mess, because even though like my previous mascara that I loved was the Too Faced Better Than Sex, I felt like I always made a mess with that one just because the wand is so big. This also is perfect for the lower lashes without getting product everywhere. I was actually thinking about this before I went to bed last night, and I'm sure that there are mascaras similar to this that you could get at a lower price point from the drugstore. But for me, trying to really focus on indie brands and small brands, I prefer to purchase from them. So I really like this. So I guess I would say if you're looking for an indie mascara, this is a great one. But if you don't really care, you just want a good mascara, I'm sure there's ones that you could get for a lesser price point, is kind of what I was thinking about. So moving on to single shadows, I feel like I'm not the best at mentioning them in favorites videos, even though I do have favorites and I have ones that I constantly go back to. but they're just harder to remember overall. I don't know, maybe it's just because there's so many tiny little pans and it can be kind of overwhelming to include them in favorites. There's been so many single sparkly shadows from like Divina that I've loved. They've released a few collections this year. Terra Moons has had some new ones. There's been some really pretty matte shades from Lethal Cosmetics. So because that is overwhelming, I decided to go ahead and choose like 2 full collections of single shadows specifically that I felt were especially favorites for me this year. So the first one I'm going to do is the Pastel Collection from Terra Moons. I'm going to leave a picture on screen because I know I did one on my Instagram of all of their pastel matte and their pastel shimmers together. I can't remember if I bought the mattes and they sent the shimmers or if I bought the shimmers and they sent the mattes, but I'll leave it on screen just so you guys know. But I really, really love this Pastel Collection from Terra Moons. The mattes in particular, I was so in love with because they're one of the best matte pastel formulas that I have found yet. I really, really recommend them. I think they're great. They work just like regular shadows. They blend so easily. They build easily. They're just such a good formula. I feel like Terra Moons in general, every matte that they do is perfection. So I really love those. And then these shimmers were stunning as well. There was a few shimmers that were duped by Divina shadows. So I have a full video on this. I will link down below for you in case you want to see comparisons, swatches, and everything. But I just felt like that collection in general, the pastels, was a real win. And then the other one that I wanted to mention is my stained glass collection from Cleona. And it's kind of funny because the first order that I did for this was in 2019, but I wasn't head over heels in love with the collection. I just thought that they were nice. But then I made another order, and the more I tried from them, the more I absolutely love. And I really think that the key for this collection is finding your favorite formula, because there are quite different formulas in here, and I feel like that can completely change how you feel about the collection. I really love their Iridescent Series 2 multichromes they came out with in the beginning of 2020, and then the glitter multichromes I absolutely love. They also came out with the vibrant multichromes this year as well, which were beautiful. Then they had the Deep Iridescent series, which I don't have with me right now because I lent them to Karen Harris because I wanted to see what they look like on her skin tone, and I was hoping she would review them. So she currently has those ones, which is 5 different shades, but I absolutely love those, and I did a full review video on them. I just feel like these shadows are so, so special. I also did make a very small order for their recent restock, but this has definitely been a favorite for me this year. I've been using them a ton, and it was quite funny because when I was rearranging this palette a few days ago, my son saw all this empty space and he's like, "Mom, you need to buy more." And I'm like, please don't tell me that. All right, so finally jumping into eyeshadow palettes, I'm gonna start off with the small palettes that I really, really love this year. So the first one is going to be, no surprise probably, this is the Kaleidos Lunar Lavender palette. I recently did a Kaleidos ranking video and mentioned this as my number 1, so I'm sure it's not a shock to see it in this video, but I just really, really love this. I feel like it's perfect for my makeup style. I love that there's the 2 different really beautiful purple shimmers. I love the matte options in here. I love that there's a lighter and a deeper brown and then a lighter and a deeper purple. I mean, that one's not super, super deep, but I feel like there is a good variety between this whole palette. It has become one of my favorite purple palettes. Next, I have fallen in love with this brand this year. I love these 2 palettes so, so much. So honestly, okay, I'm trying to decide which is my favorite between the 2, but they're both so different. First, I have the Peaceful Earth Dragon palette here, which is from Sigil, inspired by Tammy Tanuka. And last I checked, these palettes were actually available on their Etsy now as well, in case you were curious. They are a Russian indie brand. Their website is extremely difficult to navigate because only a portion of their website is translated into English. So I like to use Chrome because they help out a little bit more and they do automatic translations, but their website is just difficult in general. So they do have an Etsy as well, which is a little bit easier to navigate, but also a little bit more expensive for the same exact products, and it's still shipping from Russia, so it's still the same amount of waiting time and everything like that. So I think it's just, you know, choosing whether you prefer paying a little bit more or having it be a little bit more of a pain. Personally, I prefer having it be a little bit more of a pain, but they are available on Etsy. That's what I'm trying to say. I love this one because I feel like it's such a beautiful little smoky, grungy palette. It's honestly perfection. The shimmers in here are so, so beautiful. This one is a duochrome that's absolutely stunning with a green shift. This one feels like a pressed pigment. It's the most beautiful bronze shadow ever. And then I have also the, I think this is called the Lavender Chinchilla palette, which is a little bit lighter, a little softer, but I absolutely adore this. It's such a beautiful cool tone purple palette. I wish there was one deeper matte in here, but the shimmers are stunning. There's this really beautiful vibrant purple, this which looks like a silver in the pan, but it has a really strong blue shift. And then there's also a true silver as well. And I just feel like these palettes are amazing quality, such cute little color stories. So they have definitely been favorites this year. So now jumping into some bigger palettes, I tried to choose the palettes I felt like I reached for the absolute most. I kept going back to again and again. So firstly, I have to mention the Enduring Love palette from Sydney Grace. I absolutely love this one. I actually broke it the other day. Go figure. So the shade Devotion and Elizabeth are a little bit messed up and the entire palette's a bit messy right now, but I adore this palette. I feel like it's such a beautiful cool tone color story. It has little pops and it just inspires me to reach back for it again and again. I don't want to go on for too long because I've talked about it so many times. So next I wanted to mention the Natasha Nona Gold palette. Natasha Nona is an independently owned brand, even though it is very, very well known. This was such a splurge and honestly I'm so happy that it's a favorite because it was worth the money for me. It continues to stand out in my collection. I continue to go back to it, so I just love this. I love the shimmer options. I love the neutral matte options. I feel like everything in here is so high quality, blends super well, lasts really well on the eyes, and the color story just makes me really, really happy. I love the pops of blue and like the greeny shifts between these two shimmers here. Again, this is a palette I've talked a lot about, but it continues to be a true favorite for me. I also wanted to mention the Tiny Marvels palette. This was the collaboration between Mel Thompson and Sydney Grace. Again, a palette I've mentioned quite a bit, but I just feel like this color story is so unique. Every time I use it, I feel inspired. Every time I use it, I end up loving the look. The shadows in here are just amazing quality. I'm head over heels in love with Sydney Grace, and the shimmers are so intense. I did a video recently ranking all of my Sydney Grace palettes and swatching and reviewing them, so I went super in depth on this one and the Enduring Love. If you want to hear like my full thoughts on those, again, I don't want to be too repetitive. Also wanted to go ahead and mention the Glam Light Cake palette. This has been another favorite palette this year. I believe I mentioned it. Ooh, my nails match the palette. I mentioned it halfway through as being my top palette like of the first 6 months of 2020 that I had tried so far, and I do just really love this palette. I will say that over the last 6 months of 2020, I feel like my style has changed a little bit with my makeup, and I've been going more towards like still colorful but a little bit softer, not quite as like bold rainbow-esque. So this color story, I know it's just a rainbow palette, it hasn't appealed to me as much, but I continue to love the shimmers that are in here. The reason I really recommend this palette in particular is because of the shimmers. I feel like if you like to buy palettes but you want the quality of indie single shadows, that's what these shimmers remind me of, just because they're so creamy and sparkly and just absolutely beautiful on the lid. The matte formula is good. It's not my absolute favorite matte formula to ever exist, but the shimmers is where it is at. Like, I just feel like they're so good. This one right here, Cinnamon, is my favorite probably right now, but the shade Guava is also really beautiful. The shade Lavender, I haven't reached for it as much this second half of 2020 just because I've been so into like the neutral, soft, pop of color kind of palettes, even though I do have a very colorful eye look on today. I totally forgot to include this palette, but I also wanted to mention the Sigma Corda Rosa palette. It is such a beautiful, warm, neutral palette. The quality is beautiful. It blends really nicely. So this has also been a go-to palette for me this year every time I want a really classic, warm look. And I've just fallen in love with Sigma's eyeshadow quality overall. I have 3 more palettes I wanted to include at the very end, specifically because they are newer to me and they feel like love at first use, but I really want to use them more, get to know them more before I officially declare them as a favorite, especially a yearly favorite. I feel like that's a serious title. So I'm gonna just mention them at the very end as an honorable mention, but I am gonna keep testing them out. So firstly, I wanted to throw in the Midas Cosmetics Volume 2 Artistry palette. I really liked this the first time I used it. I actually feel like this is the best palette Midas has done yet. The mattes blended super easily. The two shimmers in here are really, really pretty. They're not like extremely creamy, but they do still have a really nice amount of pigment, and I like the colors. I just feel like this is a standout for me as a really nice, more affordable indie grungy palette option. I also wanted to throw in the Reason palette from DJ's Unique Boutique. I really wanted to do a multiple looks video with this palette, but time just got away from me, and I've only used it like 2 or 3 times. So I need to use it more, but I just felt like this color story was beautiful. The mattes in here blend so easily. They're so, so vibrant. The shimmers are really, really pretty as well. So that is a palette that I just think really, really stands out. I have used this one a little bit more, and I feel like this is going to be a long-term favorite for me. This is the Lunar Beauty Eternal Eclipse palette. It is so, so pretty. I am currently working on a 3 looks video with this. I'm not sure if it's going to be live or not yet on my channel, but every time that I've used this, the mattes are just so easy to blend. The shimmers are so beautiful. I love that there's like a little pop of blue. I love the antique gold. I love this silver. Like, this is such a beautiful silver. So I've just been really, really enjoying this. If I could change one thing about this palette, I wish that I could get rid of one of these warm shades, like between these two. I think we could get rid of this lightest one, because I feel like that's only going to be a transition shade on like light to medium skin tones. So if we could get rid of that one, because this one Sheared Out does the exact same thing, and throw in a really nice, deep, rich matte black, that would have been very appreciated in this palette. But overall, I do think that it is a really nice one. So those are all of my 2020 indie eye favorites. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.